Good morning, everyone. Welcome. Thanks so much for joining us today. Just going to give everyone some time to get in here, and then we'll get started. All right, that number's slowed down a little bit, so I'll get us moving here. Thank you everyone so much for joining us this morning for our Learning Libby with the Experts webinar. We've got so much wonderful information we're excited to share with you today. And we're going to do this kind of in two parts. We'll start with our basics, everything you need to know for your day-to-day life in the Libby app. And then we'll head into our deep dive session where we'll take a look at some of our favorite features. But before that, we'll take a little 5-minute break. So you will have time to stretch or get some more coffee or even answer some of our mini quiz questions. But before I continue, we should introduce ourselves. My name is Joe, and I'm here from OverDrive. OverDrive, of course, is the makers of our original OverDrive app, which you might have heard of. But we are here to talk about Libby, the brand new app built with that library feedback in mind. So built from the ground up for you, the user. I am a part of our digital bookmobile team here at OverDrive. So when we're not staying safe at home, we have a truck that goes across the US and Canada, visiting libraries and schools, doing exactly what you see right now, introducing everyone to Libby. I do all of that background planning, so I plan the tour route and our individual stops. But I'm here with the other half of the team.
Good morning, everyone. My name's Marissa. I'm the other half of the digital bookmobile team. I always like to give Joe a hard time and say that he has the boring half of our job. So all that desk work, like managing the budget and planning the tour route, stuff I would never want to do. But I have the fun part of our job, which is traveling with our digital bookmobile during non-COVID times and helping people learn how to use Libby. So in 2.5 years at OverDrive, I've helped thousands of people learn the basics of the Libby app and the tips and tricks that we're going to share with you today. So we're very excited to be here, even if right now it's virtually. Someday we're going to get back out on the road and hopefully we can see you in person.
Definitely looking forward to getting back on the road in 2022. But for now, let's take you through our getting started part of the morning. Now, like Marissa said, I do have the boring part of the job, so just some housekeeping I'd like to cover really quickly. We do have closed captions enabled for this webinar, and you can adjust those in your Zoom meeting controls using the box that says CC. If the captions are on the screen and they get in your way at any point, but you'd like to keep them on, just drag them around the screen using your mouse. You can ask us questions throughout the entire webinar using the Q&A feature in your Zoom meeting controls. Just tap the box that says Q&A, type out your question, and one of us will get back to you as soon as we can. If one of us is talking or presenting, the other will be responding. So keep that question and answer box open because the answers will pop up under the box or under the tab that says answered. I would also note that if you'd like, you can ask your questions anonymously if that makes you more comfortable. We are recording our webinar this morning, and you'll receive a link to that recording in an email tomorrow from Zoom. So with that in mind, you'll be able to play anything back you'd like to see again, or if you need to hop off early, you can review anything that you might have missed. Additionally, in that email, you'll get a link to our helpful PDF that includes step-by-step breakdowns and short instructional videos on everything we cover today. So if you don't want to review the entire recording, you could see if you can get some help from that handy PDF. So both of those will be linked in that email for you to download if you'd like to keep them permanently. Now, with all of that helpful material in mind, we do recommend that you watch us as we go through this presentation and wait to try out the Libby app until after we wrap up this 40-minute getting started session. When we end the webinar, a survey is going to pop up in your browser. Fill that out for us and let us know what you thought. We do take your feedback to heart and we do implement any changes we need to that come from that survey result. And last, we'll be connecting iPads into the presentation this morning. And sometimes when we do this, Zoom cuts off part of our display. We have a quick and easy fix, just a couple clicks for you, and you'll be able to see Zoom and Libby in her full glory. So just keep that in mind. We'll be sending those out in the chat shortly. All right, and let me just make sure. Okay, all good. So I'm going to take a second here and get my iPad connected, and I'll walk everyone through the download and sign in process. From there, I will hand it over to Marissa, and she'll take us through the Libby app itself for those basics. Now, as I mentioned, Marissa and I are both using iPads, but you can download the Libby app on your Apple mobile and Android mobile devices. So your iPhone or iPad or your Samsung Galaxy, your smartphone, your tablet. You can also use Libby in your computer by going to libbyapp.com in a browser. Now, whether you are downloading Libby and using it on a smartphone or a tablet, or you're using Libby on a web browser at libbyapp.com, everything is going to look exactly the same once we get into Libby itself. So for those of you downloading the app, you'll head into your app store. For Apple, it's that blue icon. For Android, it's the Google Play Store. It's a triangle or multicolored play button. And then from here, once you hop in, we're just going to go over and search for Libby. So we'll tap into the search bar and just type in Libby. And then from here, we'll tap search or enter in our keyboard. And Libby is going to be one of the first results that pops up at the top. We're looking right here, Libby by OverDrive. We've got this maroon app with Libby reading her book. Now on your Apple or Android screen, you'll either see Get or Install. So from here, you'll tap Get or Install. Libby is completely free, so there is no cost to download or use the app. You'll just be prompted to follow your device's on-screen instructions to download a new app. Once Libby's all downloaded, we'll leave the App Store and head over and open that freshly downloaded Libby app. Now, when we open Libby for the first time, she's got a few questions for us to help us find our library and get signed in with our library card. You only have to do these steps the first time you set up your device, and then going forward, Libby's going to remember your info, so you can always dive right back into your title. So first question here, do you have a library card? I'll say yes. And now we need to find our library location. So I wanted to point out, I'll search for a library when I set up that first device. But if you do have a second or third device you want to use Libby on, I just wanted to point out this copy from my other device button. So you'll get your first device all set up, and then when you're ready to set up that second, you can use this and Libby will kind of jump you through the rest of the process nice and quickly. From here though, we'll go through and finish our first setup by tapping on I'll search for a library. And now I'm just going to type in the name of your library. And we can see what we're looking for is right here. We've got the name of our physical location, but what we're looking for more importantly is right up top. This is the name of your library's digital collection, the County of Simcoe Library Cooperative. So this is what you're looking for, even more so than that physical location. And we'll tap on that box to choose our digital library. And we're almost done here. We just need to type in our card info. If this is the library that you are part of from the system, you'll tap on the name. If you're from another location in the county, just tap on either type in your location name or tap choose another location and you'll get a drop-down list. My demo card is from here, so I'll tap on that. And now I just need to type in my card number. This should appear usually under a barcode on your card. type in that whole number, no dashes or spaces. And then once that card number is entered, we'll tap on next. And then you'll just need to pop in your PIN. Now, if you have trouble during the sign-in, a problem with your card number, or if you don't know your PIN, just reach out to your friendly neighborhood librarians and they'll be able to help you out. They manage this info. Once that number is entered, we'll tap on sign in. And there we go, the screen's going to refresh. And now I have access to my library's complete collection of ebooks and audiobooks. So that wraps up the download and sign in process. I'm going to hand it over to Marissa, and she is going to take us through those basics. Marissa is going to be using a demo library from OverDrive. We just like to make sure we don't borrow anything y'all might be waiting for. So you'll see a different logo on her screen, and some of the collections will be different. But no need to worry, everything will function exactly the same. Now I'm going to let Marissa get all connected here, and if you have any questions, I'll be hanging out in the Q&A.
All right, thank you, Joe. Just let me rearrange my screen here really quick. Okay, so before I get started here, I just want to give that final reminder about the zoom ratio. So sometimes it will cut off the bottom of the screen, and Joe's going to be sending out instructions on how to correct your zoom ratio so that you can see the navigation bar that is in the footer of my screen right now. So there should be 5 icons that you see within my navigation bar. Search, library, there's the Libby icon there in the center, shelf, and timeline. So if you can't see those, then go into the chat and make sure you're following Joe's instructions, and that way you can follow along with me as I go through these Libby Basics for you. Like he said, it's a couple of clicks. It just takes a few seconds to change it, and then you should be good to go. So I will talk about all of the icons down there at the navigation bar. Now, we're going to start off with the library icon. And the library icon looks like a little library building there. It says library directly underneath. And when you tap on the library icon, that is when you're going to be browsing your library's entire collection of ebooks and audiobooks. So I always like to say the library icon is sort of like if you were to walk into the physical library and you're just browsing around and looking at what's on the shelf. You don't know exactly what you're looking for here. You're seeing everything that they have to offer. So up at the top of this page, you'll first come across filters. These filters are a great place to start if you don't know exactly what you're looking for. You could tap into just added, and that's going to show you a list of titles that were recently purchased by your library, so they're new to the collection. Available now is a really great place to start as well. These are going to be all titles that currently do not have a waiting list, so you can borrow them straight away and begin reading. And then subjects is probably one of the most popular ways to find a book. If you're someone who likes a particular subject or genre, maybe you're a mystery thriller reader or historical romance reader, you could tap into subjects here, find the subject that you want to browse by, and then you'll be presented with a list of titles that fit under that subject or genre. Now, as we scroll down this page, you'll come across a section that's labeled guides. Now, guides differ from library to library. Each library gets to choose which guides are showcased on their digital collection page. So yours might not look exactly like mine. For instance, I have magazines, you do not. So yours are going to look a little bit different, but what they do is they point you in the direction of certain content based on a specific criteria. So kids and teens, those are popular guides that we have. If we tap into kids, we're going to be presented with curated collections that fit that juvenile content. Now, as we scroll past those guides, that's when you're going to start to see curated collections, just general curated collections that your library puts together for you. Now, these are a lot like if you were to walk into the physical library during the summer and on an end cap, you'll see beach reads displayed. And then if you walk back in during the winter, you're going to see that display change over to cozy mysteries or holiday recipe guides. So these curated collections that you'll see here on this page, they're going to change throughout the year. They're going to keep rotating because the library always wants to show us something fresh and new to catch our interest. Now, like I said, the library icon down in that navigation bar is where you go to browse. You don't know exactly what you're looking for. You want to see everything that the library has to offer. If you do have a specific book in mind, that's when you're going to go over to that first icon that you see. It's the magnifying glass that says search. And here is where you're going to be able to search for something specific. So this could be a title or an author or a series name as well. I'll go ahead and type in Shipped. This is a romance that came out here this year. And then I'm going to tap on search in my device's keyboard. And you'll see that title has populated here at the top of the screen. So it was a direct search for us. Now, while we're on this page, there are two important things that I want to point out for you. The first is going to be how you can tell the difference between an ebook versus an audiobook. So your library purchases those formats separately. And what that means is you can't borrow an audiobook and then be like, oh no, I actually wanted to read this instead and switch it over into an ebook. You would have to go and find the ebook and borrow it in that case. So when you're looking for an audiobook, be on the lookout for a square jacket cover. I always like to say it kind of looks like a CD case. So you listen to CDs, you listen to audiobooks, a nice way to keep it in your mind there. And then right underneath that, you'll see a set of headphones and the duration of the audiobook as well. So those are going to be the three visual indicators that you can use to know that that book is going to be in the audiobook format. You're going to listen to it. Now, if you want to read the title instead, you're going to look for a rectangular jacket cover. So it quite literally looks like a physical book in its shape. This is going to be a book that you read. Now, I also want to point out the difference between titles that are available to borrow right away and a title that you'll have to join a waiting list for. You can see that the audiobook version here says place hold next to that jacket cover. That means there's currently someone reading every copy that the library owns. And so you'll have to join that waiting list and wait your turn. Now, to join the waiting list, it's super easy. All you have to do is tap on place hold. That's going to bring you to the confirmation page here. And at the bottom, you'll even get a little information about how long that title is going to take to get to you, an approximate wait time there. And then you can confirm that you want to place the hold with that big maroon button there. Once you tap on that, you are good to go. So we've placed the hold on shipped. And now Libby's giving us a few options for what to do next. I'm going to say keep browsing. That's the most frequent button that I tap on when I place holds, because I want to go back to the list I'm looking at. I want to see the list that I'm looking at so I can then go ahead and borrow a book. So now we see that I've placed the hold on shipped, the audiobook version. And we're going to walk through the borrowing process now. We'll do that with the ebook version here. So I could tap on borrow next to the jacket cover here in a list. Or if you don't know what a book is about yet, you can tap directly on the jacket cover itself. And that will take you to the details page. So you'll get to find out what that book is about first. And then if you decide you do want to borrow it, there's a borrow button right here on this page as well. So we'll tap on borrow. And here we can see that we're borrowing this title for 14 days. Now, 14 days is the default lending period at your library, but you can go up to 21 days if you'd like. To do that, all you have to do is tap on that 14-day button there, and you'll be presented with a list of the lending periods that you can choose from. We'll select 21. And now we've changed that lending period moving forward. So now this is going to become our default lending period from now on. You're not going to have to keep coming back and changing it to 21 every time. You'll just have to do it for ebooks, and then the first time you borrow an audiobook as well, and you'll be good to go. So now that we've changed our lending period, let's go ahead and finish the borrowing process. We'll come down to that big maroon borrow button to confirm that we want to borrow that book. And now we see that Libby is downloading the title for offline use. So as soon as this circle fully loads, it'll turn into a little library card with a check mark on it. And that icon indicates that the book is fully downloaded for offline use. That means you can take your tablet or phone up in an airplane on airplane mode, out into the middle of the woods without any cell phone service, and you'll still be able to open and enjoy your book and read it offline. All right, so now let's go ahead and open this book. I'm going to tap on this open book button here, and we'll see our title open here. Now, when you open an ebook, you'll have menus up at the top and the bottom of the screen. This bottom menu will show you your reading progress. So we can see we're on page 1 here of 373. To make those menus disappear off the screen so we can begin reading, you just have to tap in the center of the screen, and they're going to drop out off the screen there. And then we can tap or swipe on the right side of the screen to start paging forward throughout the book. Now I'm going to actually go quick here, just skip over some stuff so I could get to a big chunk of text, because now I want to show you how you can customize your ebook appearance to meet your own individual needs. This is one of the best parts of digital reading, is that you can make those books work for you instead of the other way around. So I'm going to tap on the center of the screen here. That's going to bring our menus back up. And up at the top of the screen in this right-hand corner, you'll see an A icon. That A stands for appearance. So anytime you want to change your reading appearance, you'll tap on that A, and you'll get this menu that will pop up. Now, the first thing you can change within your reading appearance is the text scale, or the size of the font. This slider here will allow you to increase or decrease your font size. Next, we have lighting. I'm currently in bright mode, that is Libby's default. But we have a sepia as well as a dark mode here if you're someone who likes to read at night, or you just like something a little easier on your eyes. That option is available for you as well. Lastly, we have book design. Now, book design is just Libby's fancy way of saying font style. So these are the different font styles that you can put your ebooks into. I always like to point out this open dyslexic font style because it may help some users with dyslexia while reading. Now, I know I just changed all of these here to show you what they look like, but I'm actually going to put them back to my settings here. And the reason that I do that is because these settings are sticky. And what I mean by sticky is that you only have to change your appearance settings once per device, and then Libby's going to remember those for you and deliver titles to you with those customizations in place. So you're not going to have to keep coming back into your appearance menu and changing your font size every time you borrow a book. Libby's going to deliver it to you with that larger font or with that dark mode in place already. All right, I'm going to come up here and tap on hide. We're going to drop that appearance menu out of the way. And then we're going to leave this ebook and pop into an audiobook here for a second. So I'm going to come up to the top left-hand corner and tap on back. Just remember, if those menus aren't on the screen, you just have to tap in the center of the screen. They will reappear, and then you'll see that back button in the corner again. So I'm going to go ahead and reorient everyone now down in that navigation bar. So let's head to the bottom of the screen here. First, I'm going to point out this now reading bar that you see. This is Libby's way of giving us easy access to the very last book that we have open in the Libby app. I'm going to dismiss this for now, just so we can see that full navigation bar here. So we started off the presentation by tapping on this library icon, and that is where we browsed for titles. So we saw everything that the library had to offer through the filters at the top of the screen, the guides that had kids and teens, and then we saw the general curated collections as well. So again, the library is where you go to browse your library's collection. Then we tapped on the magnifying glass. That's where we searched for something specific, like a title or an author or a series name. I'm now going to go to the shelf. So that's this book icon here. You see it says shelf underneath. And your shelf is going to be where you find all of your current loans in Libby and your current holds. So these are all the books you have borrowed right now, sitting on your shelf, being like waiting to read. So I'm going to come up here to the top. You can see we have some filters. Again, you can specifically look at your loans, or if you want to look at your holds, you can tap on either of those filters there. Here on the main page of the shelf, you're going to see your loans, and they're going to be organized by the last time you opened them. So that first book showing up is the book I borrowed with you earlier in the presentation. But here I have an audiobook as well that I've already borrowed. I'm going to open that audiobook up from my shelf. So up at the top and the bottom of the screen, you're going to have some menus again. This top menu is going to show you your reading progress. So we're 26% of the way through here, about 56 minutes in. This lower menu is your player. So when you're ready to begin listening to your audiobook, you just tap on play. That will start the narrator. Now you shouldn't hear him, just me, so that you can hear me instead. But he is going here on my end. And the most important thing that I can tell you about the audiobook experience that I want to make sure everyone understands is that Libby is designed to play your audiobook in the background of your device. And what that means is you can tap on play on your audiobook, and then you can minimize the app from your screen, maybe open up Amazon, start online shopping, or you can put your screen to sleep and you can start gardening or doing dishes, and your audiobook will continue to play from your device. Now, with that in mind, what I want everyone to remember is to pause their audiobook when they're done listening. So we'll tap on pause. That'll stop the narrator from talking. And that way you don't have to worry about your audiobook continuing to go in the background of your phone. The next time you go to open up Libby, you see that it's played all the way through and you have to go and find your place again. So if you take anything away from the audiobook experience, make sure you're pausing that audiobook, all right? It's a great feature unless you forget to do that. Okay, so I'm going to come up to the top here and tap on back, just like we did in that ebook experience. That's going to take us out of the audiobook and right on back to our shelf here. And I'm going to reorient everyone again. So let's go down to the bottom of the screen. You'll see I have a new now reading bar. And that's because it's always the last book that we had open in the Libby app. So now it's showing that audiobook for us. Now I'm going to dismiss this again here so we can see the full navigation bar. So your shelf is going to be your current loans and your current holds, all the stuff that you can pull off your shelf and begin reading because you have it borrowed. Right next door, you see the timeline. It's this little clock icon. This is all of your history within the Libby app. So if you tap on timeline, you're going to see every loan you've ever placed, every hold you've ever placed, renewals and returns as well. So shelf is current and timeline is your history. That's everything that you've done within the Libby app. We're going to finish off our getting started session here in the very center of the navigation bar with that Libby icon that you see there. This is the Libby menu. And you can think of the Libby menu as your app settings if that helps it keep it straight in your mind. I certainly think of it that way. So we'll tap on the Libby menu here, that icon in the center. Now, up at the top of the screen is where you're going to find any notifications for Libby. I currently don't have a notification right now, so I'm being prompted to manage my notifications instead. But if you have a book that's ready to borrow from your holds list, you'll see that pop up right here in this box. And you'll just have to swipe to the left to dismiss it. And eventually you'll see this manage notification button here. Now, Libby is going to prompt you to manage your notifications the very first time you place a hold. So she'll actually bring this menu to you and you won't have to come and find it like I am here. But I'm going to tap on this so that I can show you what that's going to look like when Libby brings that menu to you. So this is how you get alerted about important events within the Libby app. There are 3 ways to be notified here. And by default, Libby is set to this blue push notification option here. And this option, like I said, it's a push notification, and that means it appears on your device's screen regardless of what app you have open. So just like a text message, if you're reading the news or browsing Facebook or anything like that, you'll see the notification appear on your screen. Now, if you want to switch that over to a menu badge instead, you certainly can. That is going to be an in-app notification. And that means you have to open up Libby to be able to see it. You won't be alerted otherwise. And it's going to appear as a little red dot on Libby's head down in that navigation bar. And then it'll be in that box that I was talking about up at the top of the Libby menu. So you have to open up Libby to see that one there. Lastly, you can ignore. If you feel like it's a type of notification that you don't really deem important, you can of course ignore it as well. So right underneath the 3 ways you can be notified, there are all the things that you can be notified about. And the important one that I want to talk about with you today is hold ready. And I really recommend that you keep your hold ready notification set to that blue push notification option. And the reason I recommend that is because when it's your turn on a wait list, you will have a 3-day period to take action on that title. So in that 3-day period, the book is sitting in limbo and you are the only person who's able to take action on it. In the 3-day period, the 3 actions you can take are to borrow the book, to cancel the hold, or to have the hold delivered later. What delivered later means is maybe you got busy and you're not going to have time to read the book. So you can set a time period that you can stay at the top of the wait list and people will skip over you in line until that time period ends. Then you'll be the next person to borrow the book. Now, in the 3-day limbo period, if you don't take one of those 3 actions, either borrow, cancel, or deliver later, Libby's gonna automatically deliver the title later after 1 week as a courtesy. That'll only happen one time. If you don't take action the second time that book comes around to you and that 3-day limbo period starts again, that's when Libby's going to cancel your hold. You'll have to go and find the book again. You'll rejoin the wait list, which puts you right at the bottom. And trust me, it is a day ruiner when you wait 5 weeks for a book and then you have to wait another 5 weeks because you missed that limbo period where you can take action. So I know I harp on it a little bit. That's because my day's been ruined too many times by it. So I always like to give that warning there. All right, I'm going to come up here and tap on back. We're just going to go back to the main Libby menu here. So right underneath those notifications, you'll see your libraries. And you can see here, I have 2 library cards attached to Libby. They're both demo accounts, but what is great about Libby is that you can add as many library cards as you'd like. Now, these can all be from the same library. If you have multiple people in your family who want to share a device, you can add, the kids and moms and grandmas, or if you want to add additional libraries in your area, you can do that as well. Now, the caveat there is that it has to be a library that uses OverDrive services, and you have to have a valid library card to that library. Now, for example, here in Ohio, in the US, we have access to our city library and our county library and our state library. So it's very possible that you have access to multiple library cards as well. Now, right underneath that, we're going to finish off with help and support. So the first thing I'm going to talk about here is this settings menu. I'm going to tap into settings, and I want to show you how you can turn on your labels for the icons that you see within the navigation bar. So here in this menu, we're going to come down to customize navigation. And then within that menu, you'll see a navigation bar section, and your labeled icons will need to be toggled on. Now, by default, Libby has these toggled off. I'll do that so you can see that those labels disappear down by the shelf and the timeline. And so when you're a new user, I really recommend toggling those labeled icons on. It's just going to help you navigate around the app much easier. I have been using Libby for 7 years, and I still like those labeled icons. So I recommend watching this recording tomorrow, making sure you turn those labeled icons on. All right, I'm going to come up here and tap on back, and I'm going to tap back one more time to go to that main Libby menu. We're going to come back down to help and support. And lastly, I want to talk about getting some help. So for the next hour or so, you have Joe and I to answer any questions that you have about the Libby app. But after this webinar is over, you can either go to the library and ask your library questions. Of course, they are quite knowledgeable, or you have some other options as well. The first is going to be kind of what I call a self-guided help. So you're trying to find the answer yourself through the Libby app. Up here at the top, you'll see how can we help. You can ask a question or type in a topic. Maybe you want to learn how to return titles early before their due date. Of course, titles return on their due date automatically, so you never have to worry about late fees, but maybe you want to make sure it gets to the next person in line. You can type in return, tap on search, and Libby's going to try to answer your question for you. So we can tap on returning books here. And here she gives us a quick overview of how to return books manually. So those instructions. Now, if you can't find the answers you're looking for using that self-guided help there, you can always come down to ask our support team. If you tap on this, you can say, I have a problem. Maybe Libby's giving you a bug and you want to get that fixed. You have a question or an idea for the app that you want to see implemented. And this will allow you to talk with OverDrive technical support specialists. They're 100% real people, I promise, and they're quite nice as well. And they will respond to you via email and answer any questions that you have. They can help you troubleshoot any deeper issues as well. And like I said, that's communicated via email. They usually get back to you within 24 hours, unless something crazy happened like COVID, that they might get a little behind there, but generally 24-hour response time. And those are the basics of the Libby app. Everything you need to know to function day to day within the app. I'm going to let Joe take back over the screen here, and he's going to get us into some next steps.
Awesome. Thank you, Marissa. So that is a wonderful way to wrap up our live demo for getting started with Libby. Wanted to remind everyone, of course, you can still ask us those questions. We'll be either answering via the chat or we'll be talking through things in the time we have set aside at the end of this webinar. If you don't have any questions for us, we do have some for you. We are about to head into our mini quiz here, so you can test what you learned. But this is a great place where you can take that 5-minute break if you'd like to. So you have until, we'll say, 10:47 if you'd like to get up and stretch and move around, get some more coffee, and then we will be resuming with our deep dive around 10:47. So this is a great time to download the app or give yourself, just a breather if you want to continue with us. So at that kind of 10:47 mark, we will be heading into our deep dive, and we only recommend sticking around for this if you are feeling confident. So we just covered a lot of wonderful info that you need to know for those basics. And the info in the deep dive is kind of the icing on the cake. So only stick around if you feel confident and ready to take on more info, so you don't leave overwhelmed. And of course, you will be able to review the recording at any point as early as tomorrow. So you won't miss out on it. You can just kind of do it on your own pace if you are all done listening to us for the morning. So just with that in mind, take the next few minutes. And if you are leaving, we'll see you back at 10:47. And if you're sticking around for that quiz or to type out any questions, we'll get started now. All right, so the questions are going to appear on your screen automatically if you're on a computer. If you're on a mobile device, they aren't going to work for you, unfortunately. Just everything is completely anonymous, so give it your best answer. For question number 1, in the navigation bar, what do you tap to browse your library's collection? The magnifying glass, the library, the Libby menu, the stack of books, or the clock? So when you want to browse around the library, you don't know exactly what you're looking for. Where are you going to go to find that new title? And I'll close this one in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Excellent work, everyone. Looks like the majority is going to rule here. When you are just browsing for your next great read, you're going to come down to the navigation bar and tap on that library building. From here, you can kind of find that next book using the filters up at the top. You can go into the guides that your library has pre-made for you, or you can scroll through this first main page and look at all of the different curated lists, handcrafted, just like those end caps in the building itself. When you know exactly what you want, that's when you'll tap on that magnifying glass and you can search by title, author, or series name. Awesome work, everyone. For question number 2, we're still going to hang out in that navigation bar. What do you tap to find your current loans and holds? The magnifying glass, the library, Libby, the stack of books, or the clock? So where do all of your current borrowed materials live? And I'll close this one in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right, once again, majority's got it. So your current loans and holds live on your shelf. And if you want to see those, you just need to tap on that stack of books. So from here, you could sort things out by looking at just your loans or just your holds. Or if you scroll through this page, you'll see everything you have borrowed from most recent to oldest. Any available holds are going to appear at the top of the shelf to alert you. For question number 3, let's hop into an ebook. What are the 3 ways you can customize your ebook's appearance? So select all that apply. You can change the text scale, the lighting, the book design, or the language. So you can change the size of the font, the background color of the book, the font the book is presented in, or the language the book is written in. And I'll close this one in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right, amazing work, everyone. So when you're ready to adjust the appearances of your ebook, we'll tap in the center of our screen and then tap on the A icon in the upper right-hand menu. This will open our appearance menu and we can change 3 things. The first one is that text scale or the size of the font, so you can make any ebook a large print book. Next, you can change the lighting or that background color. We've got bright, sepia, and dark. And then last, you can change the font the book is presented in. So we've got the publisher's default and our Open Dyslexic, along with a couple other pre-made fonts. But we do also have a custom option where you can change things like spacing between lines of text. Now, I wanted to point out, if you answered language, that is a great answer. Just like how you have to decide if you want an ebook or an audiobook, you do have to pick the language you want the book written in before you borrow it. So your library will offer titles in a variety of different languages. And Marissa's even got a tip for us to show us how we can set preferences, so we're seeing those languages we want to see. All right, and I'm going to give us one final question. True or false, titles return automatically on their due date? And we'll close this one in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right. So this is something we don't typically cover in the basics because titles return automatically on their due date. You never have to worry about fines or late fees in Libby. Those books are just going to send themselves back. But if it's a real page turner and you want to get it back to the library as soon as you finished so someone else can borrow it, go to your shelf. Next to the book you want to return, tap Manage Loan, and then choose Return Early. There will be a confirmation screen so you don't accidentally return something you weren't done with. And with that, that will wrap up our quiz time here. And let me just jump over to this screen. All right, so thank you everyone. From here, I'm going to give you kind of a last call. If you are sticking around for our tips and tricks session, hold on to the line. But if you are kind of at your max capacity and you're all done for the day, you can tap leave in the bottom right-hand corner of your screen and you can exit the webinar. There will be a survey that pops up. Fill that out for us. Let us know what you thought of today's session. Remember, you'll get that email tomorrow from Zoom that will include a link to our helpful PDF where you can review everything we've covered, and also our recording of the full webinar. So if you're hopping off now, you can still watch those tips and tricks at your convenience. So thank you to everyone who's joining and hopping off now. If you are sticking around with us, just going to go through some quick reminders here. Of course, closed captions have been enabled for our webinar. If you need to adjust those, use the box that says CC in your Zoom meeting controls. You can ask us questions throughout the entire webinar. Just tap the box that says Q&A and type that out for us. One of us will answer it. as soon as we can, but we will also be setting aside about 10 to 15 minutes at the end of this webinar to go over different questions that we've received throughout. All right, we have 4 tips and tricks we're excited to share with you today. First, we're going to talk about how you can customize your browsing experience. Then we'll go through the ways to find the books you like faster by showing you how to filter and refine lists. Then we'll go into our favorite tip of them all, tags, what they are and how we use them, before we wrap up with making and exporting notes and highlights, a tip for more than just students in school and those of us in book club. I'm gonna let Marissa get all connected here, back with her demo library. And once again, thank you all so much for joining us. If you have any questions, I'll be in the Q&A.
All right, thank you, Joe. Let me just get my screen organized again. Sometimes I wish Zoom was like Libby and just remembered how I like my screen arranged when I shared my iPad. All right, here we go. So I'm going to jump right into our tips and tricks. And the first one is a great one for anyone who answered that question about customizing your reading appearance if they said language. So the first tip is customizing your browsing experience. We're going to be talking about how to set filters that are app-wide in Libby so that you can filter out that content that you're not interested in, and that way you're only seeing content that fits the criteria that you want it to. So I'm going to hop into a list here. Let's just hop into the available now filter to begin. So I'm looking at a list of titles that are available now, but what I want to point out here is this preferences button that you see within that dark bar across the screen. Your preferences are, like I mentioned, an app-wide filter. So these are going to be preferences that are saved and applied to all lists, and they won't be removed until you go in and remove them themselves. So they don't revert back to the default. They'll continue to filter out your lists until you change them again. So in what instances might you want an app-wide filter that's continuing to filter content out forever? Well, if you are particular about the format that you want to enjoy your books in, that is a good case. So right now under format, you see any. That means when I look for a book, I'm seeing an audiobook and ebooks. But perhaps you're someone who prefers the audiobook format. You're not really into reading with your eyes anymore. You just want to listen. In that case, you would set an audiobook preference. And then moving forward, Libby is only going to show you audiobooks when you search or browse your library's catalog. You can do the same thing for books. Maybe you don't want to see audiobooks, you only want to see ebooks. You would select books instead. Now, another case is language. Right now, we're seeing any language when we search for books. But if you are someone who, speaks French, you only want to see titles that are written in French, you could do that. In my case, I only speak English, much to my French teacher's dismay in high school. She'd be very disappointed in me. But I only want to see English titles when I'm searching for books because that is the only language that I'm able to comprehend them in. So on my personal device, I always have that English preference set. And that way, when I look for books, I'm seeing titles that are only written in English. I don't have to sort through titles that are written in other languages. The last one that's pretty popular here as well is audience. So let's say you have a young kid at home, you want to make sure that when they are on their tablet, they're only seeing age appropriate content. Instead of all, that is an instance where you'd want to set a juvenile or young adult preference, making sure that when they're searching and browsing, they're seeing age appropriate content. and that general and mature content will be filtered out. So those are the 3 most common preferences that we see set. Of course, you have a few more options available to you as well. But once you set that preference, make sure you tap apply preference. Otherwise, Libby's not going to set that preference for you. When you tap apply and that preference goes through, you'll see a little circle and it will say the number of preferences you have set. So I only set an English preference. That's why it says 1. But if I said English and audiobooks, it would say 2, etc., etc. Now, I'm going to move on to tip number 2. And this is all about filtering and refining lists so that you can find the books you like faster. Okay, we're going to stick here in this list of available titles. And I'm going to give a little prompt for this tip. Let's say tomorrow my mom and I are going to go on a road trip. And so I need to find a book for us to listen to. So of course that needs to be in the audiobook format. I want that book to be available now. We're already in that list, so good to go. She likes mystery historical fiction titles, so that is the subject that we're going to choose. And then lastly, I want it to be a new release. So I want to make sure that it's written in the last year or so. So what we're going to do when you want to filter and refine a list is come down to this refine button. It's directly across from preferences. And when you tap on refine, you'll see a list of all of the things that you can refine a list for. Now, you're going to think for a second here, wait, this says format and language, just like preferences did. What's the difference here? Preferences are sticky and continue to filter your lists until you change those preferences again. So you set a preference a day from now, a month from now, a year from now, Libby's going to continue filtering out that content you don't want. Refining is temporary. It's for the list that you're looking at that very moment. The next time you go search for a book or hop into a different list, Libby's going to revert back to all of the defaults. So sticky and stays, temporary for the search you're making right at that moment. So let's start off here with format. So we can tap on format. I want an audiobook. It's not legal to read and drive just yet. Tesla's going to figure that out eventually, I'm sure. And we've already seen our number drop down. So we started with 77,000 titles. We're now already down to 22,000 because we sorted out those additional formats. I'm going to come back to refine here. And we're now going to choose subject. So I mentioned my mom loves mystery historical fiction. So I'm going to first choose mystery here. That number has dropped again from 22,000 to 2,800. So we're making some headway, but my mom doesn't just like mysteries. She likes mystery historical fiction. She needs them to be wearing those puffy skirts and those corsets as they solve murders. So we're going to come back down to subjects and we're going to find historical fiction. And you'll see that number has dropped to 214 now. Now, I want to point out here, this list is not showing us mystery titles and historical fiction titles. This list is showing us mystery titles that are also historical fiction titles. They're both at once. And I like to point that out for you so that you know you can find niche subjects. So you can keep on adding subject filters if you want to narrow down that list. I think the sweet spot here is between 2 and 4 filters. Once you get past that, Libby's going to give you a very, very, very limited list of titles. You know, there's not very many books out there that are comedy, horror, historical fiction, you know, arts and crafts, et cetera, et cetera. Between 2 and 4 are really the sweet spot there. All right, I'm going to come down here back to refine. We have one more piece of criteria to meet. That's going to be a new release. So we're going to find sort by. Right now, this list is sorted by popularity. So the most popular books are showing up at the top. As we make our way down the list, they're getting less and less popular. Instead of popularity, I want to sort by release date. So the newest titles are showing up at the top. And then as we make our way down the list, those titles are getting older and older. And so we started this tip out with 77,000 titles. We've narrowed it down to 214. That is a much more manageable list, and we're going to be able to find the book that we want to borrow so much faster now. And that is tip number 2, filtering and refining lists. I'm now going to move on to tip number 3. And this is my favorite tip of all. I could truly talk about it all day long if you let me. I'm going to limit myself to 5 minutes for your sake. But this is all about making tagged lists. So this is a big difference between OverDrive and Libby. So in the OverDrive app, you can create a wish list and you can have a history list. In Libby, the tagging system is very robust. You can create as many tags as you'd like, and you can name your tags whatever you'd like to create your own lists. So for example, you can create a list of titles that you want to read, maybe a to be read list. You could create a list of narrators whose voices are annoying. I have a list like that on my device. You can also get really creative with it. I have a father-in-law who is an avid reader. The only thing that you can give him as a gift is a book. Otherwise, his gifts just sit in the corner of rooms collecting dust. And so I'm constantly challenged with having to find books that he's going to enjoy reading. And so on my device, I have his own tag specific to him. Throughout the year, I go through looking for my own books. I come across a book he's going to enjoy, add it to his tag. And when Christmas or Father's Day rolls around, I can open that tag up while I'm at the bookstore, choose a few books to purchase for him, and then I can move on and go and find the books that I want to be buying at the bookstore. It's really kind of selfish. I act like it's selfless, but it's a selfish tag. And I just use that as a way to show you, like, you can use tags for whatever you want. You're not limited to anything other than your imagination here. So let's go ahead. We're going to show you how to create a tag, and then I'm going to walk you through how to find the list of your tags and then how to export those tags out of the app for printing and more. So let's say we're looking for a book for my mom and I. I'm scrolling through here and I come across Clark and Division. Now, this is interesting. I want to read it, but maybe it's not the perfect fit for our road trip. So I want to save it for later. What I'm going to do is come down here and tap on tag. And now I can either create a new tag to add it to that list or tap on any of my created tags already to add it to an existing tag that I have. So regular tags are tags that don't have any special abilities. You just create them to stay organized. So you can see here, I have a to be read. I have a cooking tag to keep track of some recipes that I like in cookbooks. And then I have a mystery tag. I'm a big fan of genre tagging. I have to be in a specific mood to read mystery, so I will do that. Right underneath that, you'll see smart tags, and that will include this little receipt tag that you see here. Smart tags have special abilities, and this first tag here that you see, that is what we call our borrowed smart tag. And it actually automatically tags titles that you've borrowed in the Libby app to keep track of every book that you've read in Libby for you in a single list. I'll show you why that's really nice here in a second. I will also show you how to delete that if you do not want Libby auto tagging your borrowed books. So instead of tapping on one of my already made tags, I'm going to walk through creating a new tag for you. So let's tap on new tag here. And we can name our tag. So what this list is going to be called. We can even add a description as well. I'm going to come up here. We'll tap into that name of tag box and we can come up with our name. Let's say I scoped this out for book club. I'm just going to go ahead and name that tag book club and then tap on go. I don't need a description. That's pretty self-explanatory. And now I can see that tag has attached to this copy of Clark and Division. Now, tags showing up right next to the jacket cover is one of the reasons I love them so much. This is why it's one of my favorite features of Libby. And the reason is, as I'm scrolling through this list where I'm looking for that book for my mom and I, maybe I come across The War Widow and I see that's on my to be read. So I know that I've expressed interest in this book before by tagging it. I'm probably going to go ahead and borrow it instead of searching for another book for my mom and I to listen to on this hypothetical road trip. We're good to go. Saves me a lot of time. Now, let's say The War Widow didn't show up in this search here. We can scroll down. I come across Devil in the Dark Water, and that has my borrowed smart tag on that. Well, prior to this tag existing, I probably would have listened to the first 20 minutes of this book or read the first 50 pages if I had read it a long time ago. Now I can see I've borrowed that book in Libby before. Just because this smart tag's right there, I can skip over it in my search here and move on with finding a new book. So it really, really saves you a lot of time there. Now, that is how you can create a tag and what tags look like when you're looking at your lists, when you're browsing and searching. I'm going to come down here to the shelf, that fourth icon you see there, the stack of books. You were all so smart. You knew this is where we found our loans and holds. This is also where you can find your tags. So when you want to look at your full list of tags, you'll tap on tags. You can see all the tags that you've created. And if you want to look at those individual lists, you just tap on that individual tag. So we'll tap on TBR here. And it's going to show all 36 of those books that I've tagged as to be read. Now, a little tip here, on the right side of the screen, you'll see either a library card with a plus sign on it or a calendar with a little clock. This means it's currently on a waiting list. This means it's available to borrow right now. Either of those icons, you can tap on the icon specifically, and you can borrow or place a hold directly from that screen. So you don't have to like go and find the book and then borrow it. You can do it right from your tagged list. And more importantly, you'll see down at the bottom, this is how you can search across multiple libraries. So you'll see I have my 2 library cards attached, and Libby's telling me how many copies are available at each of my libraries. This is a great way to find the library that has the shortest waiting list and things like that. So I always like to give that little tip there. It was a real game changer when it came out. All right, I'm gonna drop this out of the way here, and we're gonna talk about exporting your tags. So I'm in my to be read tag. Here are all the books that I've tagged as to be read. Up at the top in the right-hand corner, you'll see this actions button. If you tap on actions, you can rename your tag if maybe you had a typo. You can delete that tag. So anyone who doesn't want that auto borrowed smart tag there, you can delete that smart tag if needed. And you can also export your tag. So export tag is what I'm going to show you here. I'm going to tap on export tag. Depending on what kind of file type you need, you have some options here. I'm just going to pop into table for our example. I'll tap table. And you'll see I'm now on the data export page. Now, all those books that I tagged are down here at the bottom. To print this out or export it out of the app, what we're going to do is come up to the right-hand side of the screen where you see that box with the arrow pointing up. That's the share icon. If you tap on share, you can send this tag list out in a text message or an email, or if you scroll down just a tiny bit here in this menu, you'll have the option to print as well. So perhaps you're the leader of book club, you want to make sure everyone gets to vote on the next book club book. You could print your tag list out that you compiled, take it in, and everyone can submit their vote. So a couple good options for how you can export those tags. And that wraps up tip number 3, tagging titles, why we love them so much. I hope you love them too. I have thousands and thousands and thousands of tags on my personal device. I think that they're so handy for organization there. Our last tip of the day is also going to be handy for book clubbers, as Joe mentioned, students as well. Or if you're like Joe and I, you just like to annotate your books for fun. I'm going to show you how to make notes and highlights within your ebooks here. So I'm going to go ahead and open up a copy of Pride and Prejudice here in the Libby app. I'm going to drop those menus off the screen by tapping in the center. So if you come across a passage, or this could be one word, it could be a sentence or a full paragraph. If you come across a passage that you want to save and make a note about, what you're going to do is start at the very beginning of that sentence. I'm going to move my mouse slightly to the left so you can see as I hold my finger on the word when, I'm touching the screen and keeping my finger on the screen here. Oop. There we go. I'm not tapping. That's going to turn the page. So the second your finger makes eye contact, the second your finger makes contact with the screen, keep it there, and then drag your finger across the screen until the passage that you want turns blue. Once it turns blue, that's when you can lift your finger off the screen. And you'll have a menu down at the bottom pop up where you can highlight. You can choose different colors if you want to stay organized here. Let's say I want to go green here to talk about a plot line. I will choose that color and you can see that section has turned green now. To add a note, you're just going to tap on your highlight and your note option will drop down. We can say, this is a note for the sake of demonstration. You can also write full paragraphs here. I've written some for book club, so you can put quite a bit of information here in this text box. And then we'll tap on save. Now I'm just going to page forward here. And let's say I want to reference a note that I've made earlier in the book. What we're going to do, if the book is still on your shelf, you still have the ability to open it because you're in your lending period. What you're going to do is tap on the center of the screen when you're reading the book. And then up in the top right-hand corner here, you'll see 3 bookmarks sitting in a row. If you tap on those 3 bookmarks in a row, you'll see all of the notes and highlights that you've ever made in that book. So let's say, I want to reference this note here in chapter
Sorry about that, folks. It looks like Marissa's internet connection may have dropped. Part of the joys of a hybrid working environment. Give me 1 second to get connected. And she was just wrapping up with our notes and highlights tip. So I'm actually going to start answering some questions within the Libby app while she tries to get reconnected, and I'll let her wrap up that tip once she gets back. But I am just going to connect in my iPad. So at this time, if you have any questions, feel free to send those through the Q&A now. If there's anything you'd like to see or have any questions you'd like answered, we'll answer those live now on screen. And I have a text from Marissa. Internet went out. Okay. All right. So, oh, and she's already back. There we go. So I'll have Libby open. Feel free to send through those questions while she's reconnecting to wrap up the tip. I will just kind of answer some of the questions that we've seen throughout the morning today. First, I wanted to draw attention to Julie's question with the age filter. Can you set it to multiple languages, i.e. juvenile and young adult? And I just wanted to mention with preferences, you can really only set one preference at a time. So if you are only ever looking for general adult content, or you're only ever looking for juvenile or YA, like if you're handing a device over to a child, and you only prefer one specific format, ebooks or audiobooks, that's kind of when you're setting those preferences, you know. So like Marissa said, if you're only reading in one language, kind of thing, that's the key time to do it. But if you want to search to kind of help your child find a book, that's where those refined steps are a little more helpful, because you're able to, of course, get very granular and in depth. And now that Marissa's all connected, I'll let her take back over to wrap up our tip number 4.
Can you, Joe, just tell me quickly where I left off on your end? You're muted.
I was typing an answer to the question, so it took me a minute before I even realized you had stopped talking.
Okay, we're going to talk about, then I'm going to show one more time how to, or if someone wants in Q&A to say where I started freezing, that would help too. But I'll go back to where you can find your notes and highlights if you are currently inside your ebook. So what you're going to do is tap on the center of the screen. That's going to bring up your menus here. And up in the top right-hand corner, you'll see the 3 bookmarks sitting in a row there. If you tap on those 3 bookmarks, then you will see a full list of all of the notes and highlights that you've made inside of that particular book. So we can say, oh, I want to reference this note from chapter 4. You'll see your highlight start out and your note there below. We can tap specifically on the highlight that we want to see, and it's going to drag us right on back to that page. Now, once you're on that page, if you want to see the note that was attached to the highlight that you made, you'll have to tap on the highlight and your note will drop down in that same menu we saw earlier when we typed our note in. Now I'm going to hit done here. And let's say you borrowed a book, you made all your notes and highlights in the book, and then it returns on its due date. And maybe it was a popular book, so it's now on a wait list, but you want to reference those notes and highlights that you made. There are 2 different ways that you can do that, even though the title has returned to the library. So I'm going to show you that here. I'm going to leave this book first. I'm going to tap in the center of the screen and then tap back. And what we want to do when we want to reference the notes and highlights that we've made in a book that's returned to the library is go to that book's details page. And we talked about that in our getting started session, but we can redo that here. We're going to come down to the search icon. We know exactly what we're looking for in this instance. And we are going to type in the title of that book. In this instance, it's The Guest List. And I'm going to tap on search. Now, this is another reason that borrowed smart tag comes in handy. We know this is the book I'm looking for because I've borrowed it in the past. I'm going to tap on the jacket cover, and that's going to take us to the details page. Now, once you're on the details page, if you've borrowed the book in the past, you'll have a reading journey. It captures all the actions that you've taken with a book. You can tap on reading journey here. And up at the top of the screen, you'll see an actions button. And this should be familiar from our tag tip. If you tap on actions, you can export your reading data. So I showed you the steps to export your tags, either if you want to send them in a text message or an email or print them out. You'll follow the same exact steps here to export your notes and highlights. So you can message them, email them, or print them out. Now, if that's just a little too far, you just want to reference those notes and highlights, you can do that in the app as well without exporting them out. And that's just going to be scrolling down this page here until you see the timeline for the title, and your highlights will be listed out here in your timeline. You just have to tap on that individual highlight, and up at the top, you'll see the passage that you highlighted, and right below, you'll see in quotations the note that you made as well. So you have two different ways that you can find your notes and highlights even after the title has returned to the library. You're not going to be missing out on those. And that wraps up tip number 4. Sorry about our internet glitch right in the middle of that. And I'm going to let Joe take back over here. I'm sure he has lots of great questions that he wants to go over. So Joe?
Thank you. All right, so we do have about 10 minutes left. So send through any questions you have and we'll answer those live on screen here. A couple things I wanted to point out. So we had a lot of great questions about Kobo and Kindle today. So the first thing I want to start with is it looks like many of you are aware that in February, we will be retiring the OverDrive app. So Libby is from OverDrive. We've had 2 apps for several years now, and to reduce confusion, we're going all in with Libby, so we'll only be offering the Libby app. With that said, your digital collection that's in OverDrive is exactly the same as Libby, and all of that will continue to be available through the Libby app if that's what you're using. But if you are using a reader like a Kobo device where the direct name is OverDrive, that's not going anywhere. That collection is the same one in Libby. It will just still say OverDrive because that's the company itself. So since you're borrowing from OverDrive on that Kobo, it's not going to kind of change with all of those updates, at least at this point in time. So your Kobo is still going to work. So, and with specific devices like Kobo, your best bet for any trouble you're having with the device itself is going to be straight through Kobo's website, kind of using their support tool, because of course, our support team is really only going to be able to answer questions you have about Libby or issues with titles you're seeing there. So start with their help website. If you are a Kindle Fire user, the Amazon tablet, the Kindle Fire, it only currently has access to the OverDrive app. And in February, when we remove the OverDrive app from app stores, this applies to the Apple app and Google Play stores. You'll still be able to use the OverDrive app on your Kindle Fire. Additionally, and new users will still be able to download that onto those Amazon Fire devices. If you are an existing OverDrive app user and you'd like to continue using the OverDrive app, it's not going away in February. New users just won't be able to download it. But with all of these wonderful features that you've just seen in Libby, if you're getting started, it's a much easier time to get started in Libby. Now, I have posted in our chat today links to getting started with OverDrive on your Kindle Fire, if that's what you're using, and also signing into Kobo or signing into OverDrive using your library card and your Kobo reader. So you can find those helpful links there. And the last thing I wanted to address, just kind of on the e-ink reader. So like Kobo has that great paper-like display. If that's how you're interested in reading in Canada, I would suggest a Kobo device over a Kindle because you cannot send titles to a Kindle e-ink reader outside of the United States. So unless you're using the OverDrive app through Kindle Fire, if you want that kind of paper-like reading experience, I would go the Kobo route because you won't be able to deliver titles to like a Kindle Paperwhite. So just something to consider there. We did talk about the age filter. And all right, cool. So the only other thing I wanted to point out while I have you here, I've got, of course, two things. Of course, if you ever need help and support, of course, you can first reach out to your friendly neighborhood librarians, or you can do some self-guiding or ask our team directly by going to the Libby menu. And then underneath help and support, tap on get some help. Up at the top, you'll be able to search for any of your frequently asked questions, kind of get some help. Maybe you forgot what tags are and you want to refresh yourself. You can type in tags and then tap search. And then from here, you could go into what are tags. Libby's going to give you her best guess when you use those keywords. And then if that was all of the info you needed when you read through that, you're good to go. But maybe you had, you wanted more info, you had a question, or maybe you were having an issue, you can tap on Ask Our Support Team. And from there, you can send them an email directly, whether it's a problem, a question, or an idea. You can also, of course, use the box that says suggestion box, which is a few steps back in the get some help menu. Now, the only thing with an idea, if you have a suggestion for the future, these are app specific. So if you're looking for a feature that Libby does not have, send it directly to our developers. But that is just for Libby items. It will not, we don't have anything to do with the titles available in your library. So don't send book recommendations to us, send those to your friendly neighborhood librarians.
Julie, for your question about a patron having issues with their downloaded file, that would be a great time to send them through these steps that Joe just walked through. When you get to these three options here, have her select, have them select, I have a problem. And that way they can type in, I downloaded a title, but for some reason it's asking me to connect to the internet. Can you look into this? And the technical support specialist will be able to try to replicate that issue and find out what's going on and email them a response for how to correct that.
Yeah, I actually have some additional context to this question because I did receive an email about some playback issue. And do you mind going to your shelf just so we can cover one more time? So I did receive an email for today that was about being connected into their car, listening to an audiobook, and then it being interrupted. To make sure that an audiobook is fully downloaded on a device, you are looking for that check mark next to the library card. If it's got a cloud next to it at all, that means it will not be downloaded, it will be streaming. So if you see that cloud with a down arrow and say you're using a tablet where you don't have a cellular connection, you just have Wi-Fi only, if that title isn't fully downloaded, it will stop playing once you're no longer connected. So just make sure that if a title it for some reason didn't download, if it's got that cloud next to it instead of a library card with a check mark, that might make a difference. But right, as Marissa said, could also be just something that's happening on the back end, and they should always reach out to our tech team. Great questions, everyone. Thank you. All right, well, we'll give everyone another minute here just in case they are still typing. But of course, remember, you always have access to our tech support team, even though Marissa and I are wrapping things up with you today. Thank you so much for taking the time to learn Libby with us this morning. We are excited. Oh, light went out on me. We are excited to be able to share some of our favorite features with the app that we love so much. Remember, you will be getting an email tomorrow morning from Zoom that includes a link to our fully recorded presentation. You'll be able to review this for the next 30 days. After that time, it will expire. So if you would like to keep that permanently, just download it and then you have that video forever. You'll also receive our helpful PDF that breaks down everything we covered in short videos, so you could just review a couple things versus the whole shebang. When I end the webinar in just a minute here, you're going to see a survey pop up in your browser. Fill that out for us. Let us know what you liked and what we could improve upon in the future. I think that covers just about everything. I see Marissa's typing an answer to our question here. All right.
Yeah, thank you, Joe. And all of those answers are going to be included in the recording, so you can always reference those answers in the Q&A as well.
Yep, so you'll be able to see all the questions and all of the answers we've provided. Perfect. All right, well, thank you all so much for your time today. We appreciate it. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day and happy reading.